Hey, what's up, Leron here. In today's video, I want to share with you what a typical anatomy or figure drawing session looks for me. That's how I usually do it. Sometimes I will focus on a specific body part, specific muscle, but when I do it generally, that's what I do, and I want to show you exactly how.
So we'll get started. You're going to see, I want you to mainly notice what I'm doing in terms of the flow of the session. I'm not going to go into details or showing references necessarily. So the first move I do is actually draw a bunch of dots on paper and then connecting them. And the point of this is to get your hand moving in all sorts of different directions and to even challenge yourself to connect dots by drawing lines in uncomfortable directions. All of the movement I'm doing right now, as you can see, is coming from my shoulder. I'm not putting my hand on paper. It's all about that shoulder movement. I noticed, for example, this angle gave me trouble, so I'm repeating it, you see, and just trying to warm up. This is the entire goal here, to warm up. I also like to write the date because it allows me to go back and see just how much I drew in any given day, and it's just fun to feel like you're making progress. Some dots are longer than others, longer distance, shorter distance, do a variety of these. But the points are important because then it gives you a goal. You actually try to connect, right? You're not just drawing arbitrary lines. And now for circles. Lots and lots of circles, a variety of sizes, small, big. When you think about it, circles are the same as lines in that sense. You're drawing in all different directions because a circle is basically a lot of lines combined in a rounded shape. So you're tackling everything. Then I'm doing some ellipses, trying to find that center axis that is perpendicular to the plane on which the ellipse sits. So you see, I'm going all through these very basic exercises, and I'm doing a lot of them. And now at some point, I like to turn this into drawing volumes. So I'm turning these ellipses into cylinders, three-dimensional shapes, right? And cylinders are great because they have that long axis, and the rest is just kind of a rounded shape, right? It has an orientation that's more limited than something like a cube that really shows all sides, so it's a good place to start. You could start with spheres too. Those spheres are a little more challenging, right? Here's one at a very extreme angle. We're looking right down on it. So the two circles overlap, actually. So it's good to practice a variety of these. And then finally I get into cubes. Cubes are the most specific because they orient right to left, top to bottom, tilt, everything, right? And I'm trying to tilt it in my mind's eye. I have enough videos on the specific skills I'm showing here. I want to show you what the typical session looks like. So go ahead and check those other more specific videos I did. I also did a live stream on the topic showing you exactly how I learn and improve this kind of a skill, right? So from below, from above, all angles of a cube. This one was a little lame, so I'm trying to redo it a bit more organized way. And as you can see, I kind of succeeded. Some more angles. This is really important. Sometimes I'll put a circle inside them and try and use that, or a ball, a sphere inside them, and try to imagine that as a three-dimensional object. This time I kind of jumped straight from boxes you'll see in cubes to something a little different. But yeah, you see I'm rotating it. Now rotating it clockwise. Same angle top to bottom, but clockwise, and it's really important to practice this. But now I jump into gestures. I like to start with gestures because gestures are all about a movement and the flow, so we're still not going into complex three-dimensional shapes. It's just something simple that focuses on the movement of the lines. So we started with lines, went a bit to construction in 3D, and now we're back to gesture, focusing on that looseness of the wrist and the shoulder and the elbow, trying to draw the lines in an effective way to demonstrate the movement, right? Now, the way I like to do this, I actually open up Pinterest, and then I just search for sports, athletes, stuff like that. That is really useful for getting a lot of poses. Dancers are great. All sorts of different scenes in which people are moving, I find are very useful to practice gestures because you want good movements that are very clear. Here, I'll show you another example. Starting from the head, establishing that, and sorry, I had to take a phone call, but starting from the head, establishing that, moving on to the shape of the body, and notice how I'm working in general shapes. We're getting that general shape for the torso and then the hand moving backwards. And then the back kind of rounded. I'm always starting from large to small, right? First establish the entire movement. Make sure, for example, that the knee aligns with the neck. It's about the same height or about the shoulder's height. You always want to look for these relations while thinking thinking about the motion. But again, the reason I love this is this exercise in general, it is warm-up. It's essentially warm-up. You're warming up by drawing figures in motion, so you both get a lot of experience in recognizing people in motion, and on top of that, you also improve your skill in drawing people as a very specific topic. Now, I'm doing this being exercise like Stan Prokopenko teaches in his excellent YouTube channel because I like the twist there. The torso is rotated a bit differently from the pelvis in this pose, and I kind of enjoy exaggerating it. Now, look at what I'm doing here. I wasn't planning on doing this. Usually, I do a lot of gestures, but I felt like further developing this into a three-dimensional shape. So I'm building, based on that being, I'm drawing the torso as a box, and then I'm drawing the pelvis as a box, and I'm really thinking of the shapes, exaggerating the original pose, moving things a bit more in a twisted manner, just to create some interest. And I've jumped into structure and building things as three-dimensional objects, right? So I'm connecting the two using where the oblique muscles are. You get that pinch on the right side due to the twist and the direction of movement. I added a bit of to the shoulder girdle to show where the hand comes out of. And look at how I'm drawing the hand, like a cylinder, like we practiced in just a few moments ago. So you see how it's all connected, the volumes, the gestures, the structure. This is why I like working this way, in this order, in every session I do. I like to always start with the warm-up, then always move on to some construction, some gestures, and then ultimately a proper construction of the human figure. Now, what I'm doing right now, a lot of it requires some anatomical knowledge, of course, which I'm working on gaining as we speak. It's not something that ever ends. But you can start from recognizing simple three-dimensional shapes. Here I recognize I drew the hand way too long, the arm. It should reach much upper, more closer to the glutes and not like the knee. So yeah, it takes a lot of anatomical knowledge, but that's something you gain along the way, right? You can't really know what you don't know. You got to start somewhere, and this is where I started and where I moved forward. Here's another pose that's a little more subtle, actually. The more subtle the pose is, the harder it is to get it right, usually. The more exaggerated action poses are actually easier, right? Now here I'm also doing kind of a mix between gesture and construction. So I am focusing on the gesture and getting a flowy movement, but I'm also starting to establish some volumes. And that's something that sometimes will happen too, kind of working in a hybrid way between the two approaches. But I just really enjoy doing the three-dimensional construction, so I kind of continued with it, right? And what I love about this process and this kind of a session is that it carries you along, and you slowly just are washed away into whatever it is you should practice at the moment, right? The biggest part is actually to sit down, to tell yourself, I need to practice, and to sit yourself down. Once you do that and you start practicing, then you're golden. It's going to happen. If you do it consistently, if you gain the right knowledge. Here's a close-up of this page, which I really, really like. I think I did a really good job there. And I'm going to show you now how I go back a bit to cubes. I felt like, okay, let's sharpen up the cubes. You'll see in just a moment I'll constrain these spheres inside cubes. But right now it's a sphere. I base on top of it. I cut out the sides like we do with the Loomis head method. Don't worry about, I don't know, the method or whatever. Look at it as a practice in method, in methodology. I'm doing the process I know how to do. I'm following and iterating and doing the same thing that I learned. It's just repetition, right? Now here we go. I'm going to put a cube, and then I'm going to constrain a sphere within it. I'm going to use the structure of the cube, and look at what's going on here. This is the side plane of the face, and the front plane is to the left. Cutting out the side plane, using the shape of the cube to base my perspective off of. Then cutting the center, finding the front plane. Here we go, front plane of the face. And the other side is the side plane of the face, where the ear is going to be. This is the center line right here. You see, I'm building things up. I'm not jumping straight into the details. I'm not jumping straight into the eyes. I'm not even jumping straight to the shape of the head. I'm really carving it out of three-dimensional shapes. And you can say you don't know how to do that, and that's fine. But this is exactly why we start with those simple shapes, why my session starts with drawing just basic cubes, right? Some of this comes down to knowledge. You actually have to learn what the shape is structured like. how the eye socket is inside, it's deeper on the head, and all of these things. And my structure is definitely not perfect here, and definitely not anatomically perfect, but it's just where I am in the current learning process I'm at. But yeah, it's all based on very simple shapes, and you don't have to go and jump through to the fancy stuff. You can start with those very basic shapes. Now I'm back to some gestures. One thing I get a lot of pictures of in Pinterest, it's funny enough, is skaters, because they really have that very exaggerated motion to them that I find is great. So this is actually someone skating, and you can tell by of course, this very extreme movement. The body, it's not a neutral pose in theory. The body should fall to the right, but because they're spinning, probably they're keeping their balance. If you see skaters in the Olympics or anything like that, you know that sometimes it's very extreme angles in which the body is tilted. Because of the rotation, they can stay, upright and not fall to the side. But yeah, you see one arm going forward and other back, and one leg really tucks behind the other. And then on top of that gesture, look at what I'm doing. I'm slowly starting to add some volume to it again. The knee is a very square structure, so it's important to show some straight lines there, and that actually helps with the gesture. One common misconception is that gestures have to always be rounded, but if you do that, you get that kind of snowman effect, and that's not really useful. What you want to think more in terms of is wherever straight shapes are necessary, use them. Don't be afraid to. But in any case, this is the one I'm going to show you soon, just a close-up of this. I hope you enjoyed seeing the session, and now let's wrap it up.
So thank you so much for watching. I again hope you enjoyed this one. And you see, it's really fun because you get started with the habit and how you start with a warm-up, you start with the 3D construction, and then you'll just kind of ease into it, and maybe you'll find that you want to further explore a specific pose. Maybe you want to expand on it like I did here. I wasn't even planning on doing it, but I really liked the twist that there was in relations to the pelvis and the rib cage, so I decided to go deeper on that and analyze it. And I know I haven't shared the references, but it really is more about that, what's going on in the sketchbook, and having that habit of doing it every day as much as you can. By going through the process. First, you do a warm-up. Your lines are going to be wobbly. That's perfectly fine. You won't get them to look the way you want to. Then you start doing the I guess, more well-defined shapes, three-dimensional. Maybe you do circles, you do ovals, you find that center axis. Then you turn those into three-dimensional shapes. You play around with the box. You constrain a ball inside the box. Then you can start moving into gestures, which is not about volume at all. It's more about the movement of the lines, right? I tell you there are no lines when you paint, but when you draw, there are lines that can represent a movement. And then on top of that, you start building more volumes and construct it all together. That's how I typically do it. If you do this every single day, you gain the right knowledge and then practice and apply it, you will make huge progress, trust me. And this is the cutting edge of what's difficult and challenging to do. So by doing this, you will improve. So I want to thank you so much once again. Don't forget to check out the courses, the links in the description box below. Drawing course from observation, frustration-free watercolor course. I do have a 20% off on the gallery paintings. Just use coupon code NOV21. It's November 21, NOV21. You will get 20% discount, no limited amount, so you can get whatever paintings you want. Thank you so much. I will see you again in the next vid.